Okay, so as you can see, we're going to be talking about voices from Asia and Latin America, and this is in connection with what?
Cold War.
The Cold War, yeah. When did the Cold War start?
1949.
Around 1949. Why did it start? Or at which point can we declare it? Yeah, so Churchill gave this speech about the Iron Curtain, right? And that kind of started the Cold War. And what is it meant when we say Cold War?
No direct fight.
No direct fighting between whom? The United States and Soviet Union. Very good. So who was the fighting between?
What?
Who was the fighting between? Was there fighting? Who was it between?
It was between other countries.
Other countries. Can you name any? Do you know any off the top of your head? Vietnam? Vietnam, but America was fighting in Vietnam.
Yeah, but it's not a war between the United States and the Soviet Union. It's a civil war that was.
Well, something like Nicaragua.
Okay, so another event was Nicaragua. What happened in Nicaragua?
The Soviet Union and the United States both support part of the Soviet Union support the socialist parties of the government, and the United States support two groups of terrorists.
Two groups of terrorists. You could have very well classified them as either rebels or terrorists, depending on your point of view at the time or throughout history.
What they have done.
Well, let's look at what all kinds of people did throughout history. Let's go back to the Revolutionary War of the United States. Would the people who fought against the British be considered terrorists or rebels? No, what? I asked one or the other. Which were they, terrorists or rebels?
No.
They were rebels, and they did some bad stuff, didn't they?
Who did some bad stuff? The United States?
I'm talking about, well, they weren't the United States yet. It was the American colonists. Were they rebels or were they terrorists?
Well, you see that in that period that everyone is done some bad things, so there's no comparison between.
There absolutely is a comparison. It was people fighting for their freedom. It's absolutely a comparison. Whenever you have one group of people fighting for what they determine is freedom, and remember what they determine is freedom, because to the socialists, the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, they thought that the people had freedom, right? They had limited freedoms, but they had freedoms that were assigned to them, that they gave to them, right?
Well, after the Civil War, what did the people have exactly?
How many wars do you want to talk about all at once? The Civil War is something also different, but when we had the abolitionists...
I mean the Nicaragua Civil War.
Oh, Nicaragua Civil War, okay. In Nicaragua's Civil War, and I don't know why they call it civil, it's not very civil, is it? But it's civil because it's people. The people are fighting. It's not just militaries. That's why it's called a civil war. But in that conflict, in their civil war, people thought that they were fighting for freedom. They wanted a change in government. They wanted a democracy. They felt like their voice wasn't being heard. That's the same exact thing that happened in the American Revolution. They didn't feel their voice was being heard, so they decided to fight for their freedom. What do you mean, no?
The United States supports Nicaragua, and those so-called terrorists are
Or rebels.
They were belongs to the last government.
Okay.
The Nicaragua, let's say, feudalism government.
Okay. If you want to call it a feudalism government.
They were.
If you want to call it that, that's fine. To them, it was not. But let's call them by the name that has been associated with them through history, which is the Contras. Okay, whether or not you think that they're terrorists or rebels, the name that we associate with them is Contras. Okay, so yes, there was this civil war, and we had who supporting who? We had the Soviet Union supporting the government of the Sandinistas, right? And then we had who supporting whom? The Contras, exactly. Okay, so what else do we have? We had Nicaragua. Do you know the years that happened? We will talk about that in a minute.
Which year?
We will talk about that. If nobody knows the years, we'll talk about that. That happened in the 80s. Okay, there was a whole. It's like a whole period that we could have on that discussion in that lesson. Okay, so what else happened during the Cold War? Anyone remember anything else from? Okay, Afghanistan. What happened in Afghanistan? Invaded, and then what did the United States do?
Well, nothing directly, but let some other guys like Britain, China, France to support them.
To support who?
Afghanistan, the Taliban.
The Taliban, or were they actually called the Taliban way back then? Maybe so, I believe so. Yeah, they were Taliban back then. The United States were supporting them, right? A lot of countries were. And this is when we you sent them anti-aircraft handheld missile systems, so they were able to shoot airplanes, the Soviet airplanes and Soviet helicopters out of the sky, later used against the Americans. But anyway, so we had Afghanistan, and we had a few other things. So let's talk about 4 specific things today. First of all, we have our objective. Our objective, of course, is to analyze the impact the Cold War had on Asia and Latin America. These could be 2 different classes, actually, but we're putting them into one, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars, by creating an original perspective piece based on historical events. So before the end of the class, hopefully we get to this point, you will actually be writing a journal entry as a teenager from one of these places, okay? Or a young adult, if you'd prefer, okay? So some of our keywords and phrases include containment. Containment, we want to keep everybody in a box, right? We want to keep people where they belong, right? We don't want the communists to expand past certain borders, right? That was the policy of the United States. It wasn't just, something they were trying to do. It was an actual policy. They were very determined to make sure that communism stayed within certain borders. We had what is called proxy wars. This is what we were talking about. Instead of the Soviet Union and the United States fighting each other head to head, they didn't. There were certain places where they came in contact with each other, but as soon as they did, after some shots were fired, they said, we don't want a full-blown war. Why did the United States and the Soviet Union not want a full-blown war? Why? Because of the nuclear weapons, exactly. So, proxy war is they got other people to fight for them, right? Fight their battles, literally. Next, we have the CIA interventions. CIA, what is the CIA? Another terrorist organization?
Yeah.
In some perspectives, absolutely. They have been responsible for coups in multiple countries. In fact, most of the countries in South America and in Central America had coups d'etats as a result of CIA intervention. There was also a coup and an attempted coup in Iran, right? And in other parts of the world. Africa was a big one, big continent.
Which organization hates CIA most?
Who would that be?
DEA.
DEA?
Yeah.
Because they fight against each other? There's no doubt about that. So Guatemala is one of the major examples. We will talk about Guatemala today. Another thing is the domino theory. Do you know what dominoes are? It's a game that we play. Yeah, and there's two different. Yeah, exactly. There's two different games that we play. One is, you play the actual game where you match the numbers, right, and try to end with the least amount of points. At least that's the version that I know. And then you also have the dominoes where you set them up and then they fall, right? This is what they're referring to here is that second one, when the dominoes fall. Okay? It's a belief held by US leaders that if one country in a region fell to communism, such as Vietnam or Korea, right, all other countries would soon fall. For Vietnam, they were especially concerned because you had Myanmar, Cambodia or Kampuchea. You also had what? Thailand. Indonesia's not too far away. There are other countries around that they were very concerned. And one of the biggest concerns also was Japan. If Japan would have fallen to communism, the Pacific would have been lost, according to these American politicians. Okay, so. What's that?
Before 1949, already, the communists, the Japanese communists already control the department.
The parliament? Yeah. And that was the same thing that happened in Greece as well. The communists were very strong and powerful there, and that was another concern in that area. That's why they were forced to join NATO, right, along with Turkey. They couldn't have one without the other. So, yeah, and so they were concerned that those dominoes would also fall, but we're going to focus on this part. Then we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. This only happened during 13 days, but it was 13 days that stopped the world. Why? Who knows anything about the Cuban Missile Crisis? What can you tell me?
Well, in the world, for getting protect to prevent the United States invasion, Castro asked the Soviet Union to put missile on this.
Are you sure that he asked for, or did
He asked.
It was Khrushchev, right? Are you sure Khrushchev didn't say, "Hey, dude, you're having some issues? Why don't I put some missiles over here?"
Yeah, he asked.
Okay, so you asked for it. They made what they call a backroom deal, right? It was very quiet. All of a sudden, there were missiles in Cuba. Do you know how the United States found out that there were missiles in Cuba? Did anyone tell them?
For the first photo, they find 4 missile bases.
4 photos from where? Where did they get the pictures from?
Cuba.
They get the Cuba. Where did the pictures come from? What took the pictures?
Bahamas.
Does anybody know? You know who took the pictures? Did they take them like on the ground?
No, they took by the YouTube detected plane.
Very good. There was a YouTube spy plane. Do you know anything else about the YouTube spy planes that flew over Cuba at that time? One of them made it through. Another one.
Well, it was shot down.
Exactly. Another YouTube spy plane was shot down by the Cubans with the help of Soviet troops, I imagine. They never really said who did it, I don't think. We might want to look that up. So, anyways, it was only 13 days. It was a standoff. Who was president of the United States at the time?
Kennedy.
Kennedy, exactly. John F. Kennedy. He was not considered very strong before this happened. There was the failure of the Bay of Pigs. Bay of Pigs is where there was a failed attempt at a coup to depose Castro, led by the CIA again, and some rebels. Rebels, or you're being recorded, by the way.
Actually, the people who is older than the peak operation is KGB spy.
KGB spy? Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, they're still around, for sure. Yeah. So anyways, it's the closest that the world actually came to nuclear war that we are aware of. There were probably some other times, such as when submarines went missing, or some other events had occurred when, behind the scenes, we were very close to a nuclear war with the Soviet Union. How did China get the nuclear weapon, do you know?
In the 1964, by myself.
Really? You made it by yourself, huh?
No, there were some. There were some students came back from the Soviet Union.
Oh, okay. So they got the technology from the Soviets.
And you and yours.
Yeah. Spies.
Spies. Actually, you were forcing them to not go back to China.
Is that right? Not me. I wasn't involved. I wasn't even born yet. But yeah, the United States, there was a lot of playing going on at that time. The Soviet Union got the nuclear weapon from whom? Do you know?
Actually, there were many spies from the Manhattan Plan.
But there were two people specifically who got caught.
Oppenheimer.
No, Oppenheimer did not give it to the Soviets. Starts with an R. I want to say Rosenberg.
Oh, Rosenberg.
But I don't know if I'm getting that name correct, but it was a husband and wife who gave the technology to the Soviets. And it was because they didn't think it was fair that the United States had the nuke and the Soviets didn't. They were communists. But they were caught, and do you know what happened to them?
When?
After they got caught, after their trial, do you know what happened to them? Does anybody? Were they set free? Could they go to Moscow and live happily ever after? No, what happened to them? What do you think happened to them? Yeah, not tortured. America doesn't really openly operate like that. But they were killed, judiciously killed by hanging.
What?
Hanging. They were hanged. So.
That's happened with the United States assassin.
United States assassin?
I think so.
What do you mean? No, they were in prison. They were found guilty of treason, and so they hanged him. Yeah. So, and in fact, treason, I think, still is hanging. It's a federal offense. But I don't know if they could do gas chamber or what nowadays. But nowadays, they just put them in prison forever and never let anyone talk to them again. There are some people in the United States who have done some really horrible things. One guy, recently we had this memorial or anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing by Timothy McVeigh. Have you heard of that guy? Yeah, he killed a bunch of children in a daycare along with a lot of people that were in the building, a federal building. And they didn't kill him. They put him in prison. He's in a federal prison. I think he's still in the federal prison. But if anyone deserved to die as a result of horrendous acts, it would probably be him. If a superpower rivalry happens far from your country, can it still shape your life? If there's a Cold War action happening in Brazil, for example, Dwight, does what happened in Brazil affect your life? No? You don't think so? No? Okay. What do you think?
You mean there was a
If the United States and Soviet Union still existed, well, the United States does, but if they still had the Cold War going on and something was happening in Brazil, would it affect you here? Remember, you take economics class as well.
Well, there was no longer the cheap beef or soybean, bananas, and things to support us.
Yeah, coffee even, but even though you might get most of your coffee from Vietnam. But yeah, absolutely. Economically, sure it affects us because we have a global market. We're talking about nowadays, right? Because anything that one country does, if it's big enough, it will, their economy affects the global economy. So, what do you think, Hillary? You got any opinions on this one? Can it shape your life if there's a rivalry happening in another country between two superpowers?
Superpower.
Superpowers are the powers that are the biggest. Yeah.
The superpowers are,
They were everywhere.
yeah, they would definitely affect us at some point. Because we're all on this earth.
That's true. Now, let's change perspectives a little bit. Soviet Union is gone. Okay? We have the United States, we have Russia, and we have China. Is China a superpower?
Soon.
Not soon. It is. It is. There's no doubt that it is. It has the world's largest military, right? You have
No, United States.
no. The United States has the most technology. It has the largest technological military.
Spending.
But in China, you have over 100 million people in your military. That's the biggest. There's no doubt that China has the biggest army in the world, right? It doesn't necessarily have the most technology that is applied to its military. It doesn't have the largest navy. It only has 2 aircraft carriers. One is brand new.
Yeah, one is brand new.
Yeah. So relatively small as far as that goes, but as far as all the other things, the drones, doing a fantastic job with that. The aircraft, they came out with a new generation fighter jet, has stealth technology, right? So China is a superpower. So when we talk about superpowers now, let's say that China and the United States are having some kind of rivalry in Panama. Does that affect your life? In what way?
Economically.
Economically, for sure, because now we have politicians using those things in order to establish other trade issues with each other, right? Huh?
There's sociologically some MAGA Chinese are already hating each other already.
Yes, that's true. Let's consider the number of applicants to colleges in the United States. Do you think it's going to be the same, more, or less from China to the United States next year?
Less.
Less? Why?
One way the United States, Trump was some like point to a protectionism. Don't want so many foreign students coming in India. Another way, the price, the product's price in the United States has really increased. So it would cost a serious, cost lifting to study in the United States.
Okay, so that's a very good point, actually. So while Americans may get wage increases, very doubtful, because that's not how economics works right now. They've been fighting for years just to increase the minimum wage, right? So, but they may end up getting increases in wages, but again, very, very doubtful, because the companies have to pay more money for their products, right? But the people who are going there, who are even tourists, but students especially going there, they're going to have to pay more for everything, right? The other one, of course, is for the protectionism. You know, it's not just Chinese, it's people from a lot of different countries. And now they are actually saying, no, I think I'm going to go to Japan. I think I'm going to go to Singapore. I'm going to go to Germany. I'm going to go to other places, right, that don't have trade issues. Okay, so today we're going to get into the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or conflict. There's a dispute on whether or not it was considered a war or a conflict. What's the difference between a war and a conflict? A war is official, yeah. They still call the Vietnam War or conflict a policing action. The United States there was to police the country and get them to, hey, let's all be calm, everybody. There's no reason to fight each other. What are these tunnels for? Ah!
I don't think police got bombers.
What?
I don't think police got bombers.
That's right. Police don't have bombers, right? They don't do carpet bombing. Especially even across the borders too, right? And then we had the Guatemalan coup that we'll talk about and the Cuban Missile Crisis. So we have a lot to cover. Let's start with the Korean War. The Korean War was from 1950 to 1953 officially. Okay, we'll watch this video in just a second. And what I want you to do is listen for some important dates. Okay, take notes. Who was involved in this? What were some of the major events that you hear? And then we also have an extra link here that we can look at more information, but that is something you'll do on your own. So, when you have 250,000 troops fighting against you, you don't really stand much of a chance, huh? Especially when you're, in the tens of thousands against hundreds of thousands. So, this is one of those cases where it didn't matter how much technology they had. They weren't obviously as technological advanced as they are now, any military, but by sheer force, by sheer population, by sheer numbers, they were overwhelmed. The Americans were, or the United Nations troops. Okay, so there was a lot going on. They went back and forth for a while. Okay, is North and South Korea currently at peace?
No.
No, why? Technically.
Because it just stopped war.
That's right, just an armistice, right? They sit down at the negotiating table every once in a while and talk about stuff, but yeah, do you ever think that the two countries will unify?
No,
No, you don't think so?
I think they'll get along eventually.
Well, maybe someday after the United States forgot.
After the United States is gone, do you think that's going to happen? All empires fall, right? Right?
The earth falls too.
Well, when the earth collapses, sure. They'll unify then, won't they? On their way to whatever heaven they believe in. So why did the United States decide to intervene in Korea?
They don't want the spread of communism.
Yeah, containment. Okay. What role did the policy of containment play? Keeping them in. So how did the entry of China affect the course of the war? Why did China enter?
They don't want competition.
Because the next step, you're going to invade us.
You thought that the next step from the United Nations or America was invasion of China? Definitely. It has been.
Because that time, China still have no need.
Well, but also, remember, MacArthur was dismissed because he wanted actions against China directly.
According to the Truman's remember that he said it's not time. It was not time.
It's just not time yet. Yeah. Okay, so what are the long-term consequences of the Korean War for the Korean Peninsula? What are the long-term consequences? What's happening there right now?
To see the difference between the North and the South.
There's a huge difference, right, between their economies, their people, cost of living.
Different accents.
They've developed different accents because they don't communicate directly with each other. They truly are different countries, aren't they?
We never want to go to North.
I would like to go check it out, just see what it's.
See if you survive.
See if I survive. I don't think Americans are actually allowed there right now.
But now that you're on the I don't think you'll make it out of
I would like to see firsthand what it looks like. It's an older video, yeah, but the truth doesn't change. Banana Land.
Yeah.
There was this company in Guatemala. It was a banana company. Panama was also established because of an American company. Was Panama always Panama? No. What was it? What country was it part of?
The Colombia.
Colombia, that's right. And because of not just the canal, but because of an American company, it was formed. It was taken from Colombia and established. This is where the term Banana Republic comes from. Have you ever heard that term, Banana Republic? A Banana Republic is a republic that is established as a result of coup d'etats, American intervention in Central America. So
They millions of people just for that.
that's exactly correct. There were a lot of people enslaved. This company, for example, made, probably in today's market, would be billions of dollars.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, and the people, however, were dirt poor. They couldn't even afford to buy the bananas. So it was horrible. All right, we're going to have to do part 2 on the next class that we have. Okay, I don't know if that's going to be next week or not. I'm going to give you guys a schedule for next week because it is different. I'll give that to you all later, okay? So, any questions, comments, complaints, concerns? Okay, so take a break real quick and let's get ready for the next lesson.